Tower of London, May 19th, 1536. A French swordsman, imported specifically for the job, takes Anne Boleyn's head with one clean stroke. She's wife number 2, and the man who brought her here, the man who broke from Rome just to marry her 3 years ago, he's already picked out wife number 3. Henry VIII, Cancer Sun, Aries Moon, Virgo Rising, and that combination explains literally everything about why 6 wives weren't enough. But here's what gets me. That Cancer placement predicted he'd be desperate for family and legacy. The Aries Moon shows exactly why his rage was volcanic enough to eliminate 2 of them. And that Virgo Rising? That's why none of them could ever meet his impossible standards. Wait till you see what happened when all 3 of those energies collided with absolute power. The obsessive Cancer neediness, the explosive Aries emotional reactions. The critical Virgo perfectionism, it created a king who needed constant validation, lost his temper when he didn't get it, and found fault with everyone who tried to give it to him. Okay, so before we get into this, subscribe if you love understanding historical figures through their charts. Hit like if you're ready for this absolutely wild story. And real talk, would you rather have Henry's Cancer ambition knowing it comes with that level of emotional neediness and rage, or would you pass? Comment below because I need to know if you think his chart made him powerful or just toxic. So, Henry VIII, born June 28, 1491 at Greenwich Palace, Cancer Sun, Aries Moon, Virgo Rising. And listen, we need to talk about this chart because it's genuinely unhinged. Cancer is the zodiac's emotional hoarder. They need security, they need family, they need legacy, they need to feel needed. It's ruled by the moon, so everything's about emotional fulfillment and creating that sense of home and safety. But pair that with an Aries Moon. That's where the rage comes from. Aries Moon is impulsive, volcanic, can't handle being told no. Mars-ruled emotional responses, 0 to 100 in seconds. And then the Virgo Rising adds this layer of nothing's ever good enough, perfectionism, control, that critical eye that finds flaws in everything. Henry's basically walking around as an emotionally needy Cancer who explodes like an Aries when his needs aren't met and judges everyone with Virgo's impossible standards. A recipe for disaster. Or in his case, 6 marriages, 2 beheadings, and the entire English Reformation. Henry wasn't supposed to be king. Classic younger sibling energy, honestly. His older brother Arthur was the heir, getting groomed for the throne while Henry got pushed toward the church, which actually tracks for Cancer. They often thrive when they're caring for others, in supportive roles. But here's the thing, Arthur passed away in 1502 when Henry was just 10. Suddenly, this Cancer kid who'd been living in his brother's shadow becomes the only male heir. The pressure to secure the Tudor dynasty, immediately on his shoulders. And for a Cancer son, that need to protect the family legacy, to make sure his father's work doesn't fall apart. It becomes the entire mission. Then in 1509, Henry's father passes away. Henry's 18, gorgeous, 6'2", athletic, could joust for hours. Described as an Adonis with a 32-inch waist, the golden Renaissance prince. And that Virgo Rising meant he was polished, refined, impossibly charming when he wanted to be. But underneath all that, pure Cancer emotional intensity waiting to explode. 11 days after becoming king, Henry marries Catherine of Aragon, his brother's widow. And this is so Cancer Sun behavior. Catherine represents stability. She's connected to Spain, she's politically useful, and she's familiar. Cancers hate change. They want what feels safe and known. For the first 18 years, he's genuinely devoted to her, that Cancer loyalty coming through, but here's where it gets messy. Catherine keeps getting pregnant, 6 pregnancies between 1510 and 1518. Stillborn daughter, dead son, another dead son, stillborn son, another dead son. Only one survives, Princess Mary. And for Henry, this becomes the obsession. The Cancer need for legacy mixing with that Aries Moon's impatience. He's watching the Tudor line hang by a thread. He has one daughter, one. And back then, daughters don't count. England's never had a ruling queen. The fear of civil war, of losing everything his father built, it's eating him alive. Very Cancer Sun in the worst way. That desperate need for security through family, through producing an heir, becomes everything. By the 1520s, Henry's convinced his marriage to Catherine is cursed. There's a verse in Leviticus. If a man marries his brother's widow, they'll be childless. And Henry, in peak anxious Cancer fashion, decides God is punishing him. The guilt, the superstition, very water sign behavior. But really, he's obsessed with Anne Boleyn. Anne shows up at court around 1522, dark-haired, French-educated, won't sleep with him. And that last part, that's what hooks him, because Henry's used to getting what he wants immediately. Aries Moon entitlement, and Anne's making him work for it. She refuses to be his mistress like her sister was. She wants marriage. And Henry. Cancer Sun desperation for that emotional connection mixed with Aries Moon's I want it now energy. He loses his mind. He starts the entire English Reformation because the Pope won't annul his marriage. The break from Rome, declaring himself supreme head of the Church of England, all because a Cancer couldn't let go of what he wanted and an Aries Moon doesn't accept no. In 1533, he secretly marries Anne. She's already pregnant. Total Aries Moon move, honestly. Acting first, dealing with consequences never. He's so sure she's carrying his son, the son he's been desperate for. September 7th, 1533. Anne gives birth to a girl, Princess Elizabeth, future Elizabeth IV. But Henry, devastated. This was supposed to be the answer. This was supposed to be the legacy. Very Cancer energy to build up these fantasies of what family will look like, and then when reality doesn't match, collapse. Over the next 3 years, Anne has a miscarriage. Then in January 1536, another miscarriage. This time it's a boy. And Henry snaps. That Aries Moon rage taking over completely. He's done. Anne's not giving him what he needs. The Cancer insecurity kicks in. What if she's not the one? What if the universe is still punishing him? And now there's Jane Seymour, quiet, demure, serving as Anne's lady-in-waiting. The opposite of Anne in every way. And Henry convinces himself she's the answer. But he can't just divorce Anne. So in May 1536, he has her arrested. Charges of adultery with 5 men, including her own brother. Treason. It's almost certainly false. But Henry needs her gone, and the Aries Moon doesn't care about truth when emotions are involved. May 19th, 1536. Anne's eliminated by a French swordsman. She's maybe 29 years old. 11 days later. 11 days. Henry marries Jane Seymour. That Virgo rising at work. Clinical. Efficient. Already moving to the next option like he's optimizing a strategy. No emotional processing. Just next. And Jane? Jane gives him what he's been desperate for. October 12th, 1537. A son. Prince Edward, future Edward VI. Henry's 46 years old, and finally, he has his male heir, the Cancer dream realized. Except 12 days later, Jane passes away from childbirth complications, and this destroys him. Of all 6 wives, Henry genuinely mourns Jane. He's buried next to her decades later, that Cancer attachment showing its loyal side. She's the only one who gave him what he needed without disappointing him. She's frozen in time as perfect. Very Cancer to idealize the person who fulfilled their deepest need, but Henry can't stay single. Political alliances need reinforcing. So in 1539, his chief minister Thomas Cromwell sets up a marriage with Anne of Cleves, a German princess. This is purely strategic, Protestant alliance. But when Anne arrives in January 1540, Henry takes one look at her and calls her a Flanders mare. That Virgo rising perfectionism at its absolute worst. He's immediately critical. She doesn't look like her portrait. She doesn't meet his standards. He can't even consummate the marriage. 6 months later, annulment. Anne's smart enough to agree without a fight. She gets a generous settlement and survives as the king's beloved sister. She actually outlives all of them, which honestly, good for her. But the same day Cromwell is eliminated for arranging that disaster of a marriage, Henry marries again. Wife number 5, Catherine Howard, 19 years old, first cousin to Anne Boleyn. He's 49, over 300 pounds at this point, leg ulcers from that 1536 jousting accident, and he calls Catherine his rose without a thorn. The Cancer neediness in full effect. He needs to feel young, desired, validated, and Catherine's giving him that attention. For a minute, because Catherine was young and reckless. She'd had relationships before Henry, and after marrying him, there's evidence she got involved with Thomas Culpeper, a courtier. November 1541, Henry's informed, and that Aries Moon rage, it's total annihilation, not just betrayal of his emotions, but his ego, his manhood, his image. Catherine's arrested, so is Culpeper. February 13th, 1542. Catherine's taken to the same scaffold where her cousin Anne died 6 years earlier. She's maybe 20 years old, eliminated for the crime of making a Cancer king feel unwanted and foolish. Henry's sixth and final wife is Catherine Parr, July 1543. She's 31, been married twice before, and honestly, Shasir, she's a survivor. She figures out exactly what Henry needs in his final years: a companion, a nurse, someone who won't challenge him or trigger that Aries rage. She's careful. She's smart. She plays the role of supportive partner without pushing boundaries. And she survives him, which is the goal at this point, honestly. By 1546, Henry's barely recognizable from the Golden Prince of 1509. He weighs somewhere between 300 and 400 pounds, 54-inch waist. Those leg ulcers from the 1536 jousting accident never healed. They're infected, constantly leaking, being cauterized with hot irons. He's in agony. Has to be carried around the palace in a chair. His temper's worse than ever. That Aries Moon combined with chronic pain means anyone could set him off. Courtiers are terrified. He's eliminated more people than any monarch in English history: advisors, nobles, 2 wives. His paranoia's out of control. That Cancer shadow side. When they feel threatened, they lash out to protect themselves. Henry's eliminating perceived threats left and right. January 28, 1547. Whitehall Palace. Henry VIII passes away at 55 years old, probably from renal and liver failure. His 9-year-old son Edward becomes king. Then Mary, then Elizabeth. All 3 of his surviving children take the throne eventually. So in a twisted way, the Cancer obsession with legacy, it worked. The Tudor line continues through all of them. Here's what gets me about this chart, though. Cancer Sun, Aries Moon, Virgo rising. Let's break down the patterns. The Cancer Sun gave him that desperate need for family, for emotional security through legacy. He wasn't just being a tyrant. He genuinely believed the survival of England depended on a male heir. That's peak Cancer energy, protecting home and family at any cost. But because it was so emotionally driven, every pregnancy, every miscarriage, every daughter instead of a son, it felt like personal rejection. The Aries Moon is what made his emotional reaction so volcanic. Aries Moon people feel everything immediately and intensely. There's no pause button. When Anne Boleyn miscarried, when Catherine Howard betrayed him, when things didn't go his way, the rage was instant. Mars-ruled emotions don't wait. They don't process, they explode. And that's what made him dangerous. The combination of Cancer's emotional intensity with Aries' impulsive reactions meant people lost their heads when Henry's feelings got hurt. And that Virgo rising, that's the part that made no one good enough. Virgo rising people present as polished and perfectionistic, but underneath there's this critical voice finding fault in everything. Catherine of Aragon got too old. Anne Boleyn didn't give him a son. Anne of Cleves wasn't attractive enough. Catherine Howard wasn't faithful enough. Even Jane Seymour, who he mourned forever, she had to literally pass away to stay perfect in his eyes. The Virgo rising meant he was constantly evaluating everyone against impossible standards. But here's the really wild part. All these placements working together created this loop he couldn't escape. Cancer Sun makes him need emotional security and family legacy desperately. Aries Moon makes him react impulsively and violently when those needs aren't met. Virgo rising makes him critical of everyone trying to meet those needs. So he's stuck in this cycle of needing validation, not getting it the exact way he wants, exploding in rage, finding fault with whoever disappointed him, and starting over with someone new. 6 times, the pattern never changes because the chart never changes. Look at the relationship patterns. He starts each marriage convinced this is the one who'll give him everything he needs. total Cancer idealization. Then reality hits. They're human. They can't produce sons on command. They age. They have their own needs. And the critical Virgo rising finds every flaw. The Aries Moon gets impatient, and the Cancer Sun feels betrayed that they're not providing the security he needs. With Catherine of Aragon, 18 years of loyalty. But the second she couldn't give him a son, all that Cancer devotion flipped to resentment. With Anne Boleyn, 7 years of obsessive pursuit. But 3 years of marriage and 2 daughters later, she's eliminated. With Jane Seymour, he barely knew her, but she gave him a son and passed away before disappointing him, so she stays perfect forever. With Anne of Cleves, physical attraction was missing from day one. Virgo rising rejected her immediately, annulment in 6 months. With Catherine Howard, young and fun until she may be cheated. Then Aries Moon rage takes over, she's gone in months. With Catherine Parr, she's smart enough to manage his impossible needs and survives because she doesn't trigger any of his 3 major placements. And the political decisions, same patterns. The break from Rome, that's Aries Moon impulsivity combined with Cancer's refusal to let go of what he wants. The dissolution of the monasteries, seizing church property to fund his wars and building projects. Very Cancer need to control resources and create security. But also, Virgo rising's need to reform and perfect systems. The constant paranoia and eliminations in his later years. That's Cancer's shadow side. When they feel threatened, Cancers turn ruthless to protect themselves. Combined with Aries Moon's quick trigger and Virgo rising's critical judgment, it meant anyone perceived as disloyal or incompetent was eliminated. His physical transformation tells the story too. Young Henry, gorgeous, athletic, charming. The evolved expression of all 3 placements: Cancer warmth, Aries energy, Virgo refinement. But that 1536 jousting accident changed everything. Suddenly, he can't exercise. The weight piles on, the pain is constant, and all 3 placements start expressing in their shadow forms. Cancer becomes clingy, needy, paranoid. Aries becomes rageful and impulsive. Virgo becomes hypercritical and controlling. By the end, he's this bloated, pain-ridden, terrifying king that nobody wants to be near. The courtiers are literally fleeing when he has his rage episodes. Only Catherine Parr can calm him down, and that's because she's learned exactly how to manage his emotional triggers. Here's what the chart predicted all along, though. A Cancer Sun was always going to be obsessed with legacy and family. That's non-negotiable. The question was whether it would express in a healthy way or nurturing, protective, building something lasting, or in a shadow way, obsessive, controlling, eliminating anyone who threatened the dream. With Henry, we got full shadow. The Aries Moon was always going to make his emotions explosive. Aries Moons don't do subtle feelings. They're fighters. The question was whether he'd channel that warrior energy into productive action or destructive rage. Henry did both. Early on, he's leading armies, jousting, being the champion. Later, he's just destroying anyone in his path. The Virgo rising was always going to make him exacting and particular. Virgo risings have high standards. The question was whether he'd use that for genuine improvement or just constant criticism. And with 6 wives, multiple eliminated advisors, and a reputation for impossible expectations, we know which way it went. What gets me is how predictable it all was. The first wife couldn't give him sons, so Cancer's fear of losing family legacy kicks in. He pursues the second wife for years because Aries Moon wants what it wants immediately and won't take no. He finds fault with her because Virgo rising is never satisfied. He idealizes the third wife because she fulfilled the Cancer need before dying. He rejects the fourth wife instantly because Virgo rising judges on appearance. He's devastated by the fifth wife's betrayal because Cancer takes betrayal personally and Aries Moon explodes. He tolerates the sixth wife because by then he's too tired and sick to keep cycling through the pattern. And the legacy he was so desperate for? It's complicated. He wanted a son to secure the Tudor line. He got Edward VI, who ruled for 6 years and passed away at 15. Then Mary I takes over, Catherine of Aragon's daughter, the one Henry basically rejected. She rules for 5 years. Then Elizabeth VIII, Anne Boleyn's daughter, the one Henry was disappointed by at birth because she wasn't a boy. She rules for 45 years and becomes one of England's greatest monarchs. So the Cancer obsession with male heirs? Kind of irrelevant. His daughters ended up mattering more. The Aries impulsivity in breaking from Rome? That created the English Reformation, changed the religious landscape of Europe forever. The Virgo perfectionism and control. He centralized royal power in ways that shaped the monarchy for centuries. For better and worse, the chart's influence echoes through history. But at what cost? 2 wives eliminated, countless advisors and nobles gone, a country torn apart by religious upheaval. A king who spent his final years in agony, paranoid, raging at everyone around him, unable to find the emotional security he'd been chasing his entire life. That's what happens when a Cancer sun refuses to accept that you can't control everything. When an Aries moon never learns to pause before reacting. When a Virgo rising never stops finding fault. The combination creates someone powerful but ultimately hollow. Someone who has everything: wealth, power, wives, children, but never feels secure, never feels satisfied, never feels enough. And that's the Cancer-Aries-Virgo trap. The need for emotional security that can never be fully met. The impulsive reactions that destroy what you're trying to protect. The perfectionism that makes every person and situation fall short. Henry VIII lived that trap for 55 years and 6 marriages. The chart predicted it, the patterns proved it, and history recorded it all.